Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, Evil Martin makes his return, but this time he's stronger. For those of you unfamiliar with this snoozing sneak, here's how he works. When Evil Martin detects that he is -5 on the eval bar, he will unleash his power and play like a grandmaster for the rest of the game. This bot was made possible by Wintercat. Go check out his channel after this video since he's the programmer who brought this Frankenstein to life. The last time we played Evil Martin, he awoke at -6. But now that the trigger point is lower, I may have to be more selective with which free pieces I actually accept. Also, you guys will see Martin's icon change when he starts playing like a grandmaster, but I won't. Let's start with d4. Didn't fail us last time. I don't have any reason to think it'll fail us this time. We get knight to f6, pretty standard. We'll go ahead and play bishop to f4, play the London as always. We're met with c6. Cool, this is pretty normal play, so I'll just play e3. I don't have to reckon with anything too weird yet. b5 is objectively a bad move, but it's not forcing me to take anything free, so I'll just keep playing. Knight to f3, d6, sure. I like to meet d6 with bishop to e2, so that e5, e4 is never a concern. So I'll play bishop to e2. Okay, we get knight to d7, sure, I'll just castle. Knight back to g8. Again, objectively not a good move, but nothing that I have to reckon with, so I get plenty of time to get good advantage here with development. We're met with f5. I guess now I could play bishop d3 and target this pawn. I don't think that's enough to trigger -5, not even close to it. But there's also ideas here of attacking on this diagonal. Not that the f-pawn has been moved. Generally, that's why you don't want to move the f-pawn unless you're playing the Dutch or otherwise know what you're doing, because it weakens the kingside diagonal. So here, something like g5, for example, would walk into, I don't know, knight to e1 and then mate on h5. So I'm going to preemptively move my knight back to e1, just to have this in my back pocket pretty much. Okay, we get knight back to f6, which does stop that idea. If g5, we could have played bishop h5 mate, which would have been pretty sick. But I don't think that black is yet -5 on the board, so I can just continue my development. I'm gonna go ahead and play c3 since that's a pretty standard London move. We're met with knight to b6, sure, why not? I mean, for Martin, this is all pretty darn good. It's not the best, but it's not awful either. He's playing a pretty decent game. I'll go ahead and play queen to c2 with ideas of e4. And we're met with g6. Consolidates this pawn structure and looks to develop the bishop on g7. I'll go ahead and play e4 here, playing for that center break. We're met with a5. This is really interesting because this is a move that we've got a lot before in the past. Every bot from Martin all the way up to Stockfish will play a5 or sometimes h5 alternatively, which I find pretty interesting. Anyways, this does allow me to continue traipsing into the center. I don't really want to capture on f5 because he'll recapture and hit my queen with tempo. Alternatively, I could just leave it there and develop my knight back to where it was really supposed to be in the first place. I'll play that, knight to f3. We get bishop g7, and I'll go ahead and bring my rook towards the center. Okay, we get d5, which does challenge e4 now sufficiently to where I have to make a decision about it. I can either push e5 or I can accept one of these trades. Personally, I think e5 makes the most sense. It's most forceful. The best move there for him would probably be to move the knight towards the center, knight to e4, and then if takes, and then maybe f-pawn takes, we're both fighting for the center, but I wouldn't say that I've lost that battle necessarily. So I'll play e5 here. Okay, we do get knight to e4, which is the most challenging move. I don't necessarily have to accept this trade, because I do have the option to play knight to f1, knight to g3. Reroute the knight to the king side, which it seems is where most of the activity will be on the board. Because if I do take, I do cement his pawn structure well into the center, as mine is at the moment, and I'm not particularly interested in doing that. So I'm going to play knight back to f1 instead. Okay, we're met with bishop to h6. We get a free piece on the board, which, frankly, for Martin, it's about time we got a free piece. This is also a really good sign because it means that we're not playing against Evil Martin yet, guaranteed, because Evil Martin would never give up a free bishop. The question is, do I accept the free bishop and fight basically a grandmaster from this position, or do I ignore it and wait for something like a free queen or something like that? I mean, last time when I accepted a free piece, I did win the game, but I think I was in a much more comfortable position than I am right now. I still think, though, that I can win this, because if I take this bishop, not only am I up a piece, but the dark squares on the king side are very weak, and it's not very clear where black's pieces need to go from here, right? This knight doesn't have a particular home. If knight to c4, there's always ideas of b3, and this bishop is basically stuck behind a wall of its own pawns. So I'll go ahead and accept the free bishop. Okay, we get pawn to a4, which could easily be a Martin move actually, because I'm not entirely convinced, given that black's knight is still in the center, that capturing this free piece is enough to push it to -6. So a4 could easily still be a Martin move. We are at material, we should trade pieces, so let's play knight to g5 here. Force this knight to get traded off, and yeah. Okay, he does trade off the knight, cool, we'll go ahead and recapture. We're met with h6, kicking the bishop, which makes a lot of sense. We have to be careful here because there's even ideas of like bishop to h4, g5, bishop g3, f4, which would trap the bishop. But I feel like we could meet that with like queen g6 check, bishop g4 check. I'm not sure if we would make up the material, but it could still get kind of scary for him. But either way, I'm not really interested in losing the bishop that I just won, so I'm going to go ahead and move it back to d2. Okay, we're met with bishop to e6. Again, this bishop is going to have a really hard time getting out of this pawn structure. And in the meantime, these pawns are still kind of weak. So what about something like queen to c1? Seems a little bit like a weird move, but we get this battery that hits h6 and forces either g5, which weakens the h5 square, so bishop h5 is possible, or h5, in which case the dark squares would then be weak. The bishop can go back to g5, we get h4 on the board. So I'm going to go ahead and play queen to c1. We do get g5, and I'll go ahead and play this check, really without too much thought. Okay, he loses the right to castle, but he does move the king towards the queen side, which is more closed off than the king side is at the moment, so the king will be safer on that side of the board. We could actually try to force the issue with something like h4, maybe takes, but then my concern is that I open up my own king side for no reason. So let's see, what if I turn my attention to the queen side and play something like b3? I look to open the queen side and basically uncover the king that he's trying to hide. So I'm going to play b3 here. We get f4. The bishop has finally found a way to escape the barrier of pawns. In fact, now my own bishop is staring into a chain of pawns, which I'm just now realizing is basically a guarantee that I'm playing against Grandmaster now, because there's no way this many moves in a row that make perfect sense is possible for Martin. I mean, this is just incredibly strong, and what a funny coincidence that now my bishop is worse and his bishop is now better, right? So this is almost definitely the Grandmaster at this point. With that in mind, what about something like g3? I know I just said that I don't want to open up my king side, but it's really tempting to go for takes, and then king to h1, knight g3, put my rook on that open file, and basically start looking for some counterplay here. Let's give that a try, and honestly the real temptation here is that if he doesn't accept, there's ideas of g4, f3, h3, and then the whole position is closed, at least on the king side, and then I can start finessing the queen side a little bit. So I'll play g3. Ooh, queen to g8, g4, and I just close up the entire side of the board. I'm going to go for that. I know it's weird to be playing so defensive when I'm up a piece, but I think it's to my advantage right now. Queen to h7 I have to be a little bit careful of because there's ideas of queen to d3, which could get pretty annoying fast. So what about queen to b1 here? No way to get in without trading the queens, so I'll play that. We do get the queen trade. Now, which rook do I want to capture with? If I capture with this rook, takes, I allow the rook to come down to the second rank, which is not worse, I don't imagine, but not particularly comfortable either. Whereas, if I take with this rook, takes, leaves the rook staring at each other, and I'm still fighting for that open file. So I'll take with this rook. We do get rook to a7. Clearly, he has ideas of doubling the rook before capturing, so that if I take with the rook, he can take on a2 and win a pawn. Or, obviously, if I take with the pawn, I lose the rook on a1, takes, I lose the rook. So, I really don't want to close up this side of the board too, because then I'm just walking into a draw, which would be a huge bummer after being up a piece. How about this? My biggest concern right now with closing off the queen side is knight to c4 is extremely strong. So, what if I play f3, protects this pawn, closes off the king side, and then the plan is bishop g6, bishop d3. So after b4 and a3, I can take the knight, and I have potential on the king side later to play nice and slow, king g2, double my rooks on this side of the board, h4, and basically the key to play for counterplay is in my hands because I'm the one that can play h4, whereas there's no clear way for him to break through the position. So I'm going to give that a try, f3. We do get rook to a8, the original idea, and now I think I can just play b4. If knight to c4, bishop back, I control all of the squares that the knight can move to. That's a cool thing about the bishop. is that it can control all the squares that a knight can move to, at least on one half of the board. And then that buys me time to play bishop g6, bishop d3. So I'll play b4 here. We do get knight to c4. I just realized I said I'm going to play bishop to c1, but this bishop is actually defended, so that's kind of an unnecessary move. So I'll play bishop to g6 right away. We do get rook to g8, hitting the bishop. We'll go ahead and retreat to d3. Rook to a8. I think it's starting to understand that the plan is now on the king's side. So if I take and he takes, I'm not worried about bishops to d5 because king to f2 was the idea anyways. I protect that pawn. And then I have plenty of tempo to rearrange my pieces, which admittedly are badly positioned at the moment, to h1, h2, and to look for counterplay on this side of the board. So I'll go ahead and take, right, king to f2. Rook to f8, sure. Now the question is, how do I rearrange all of these pieces? I'd imagine the fastest way is h3, which could be necessary at some point anyways if he decides to play for h5. And then knight to h2, bring both of my rooks over, and then knight back to f1. Then I can play for h4 after that. So I'll go ahead and start with that, h3. Ooh, we do get h5, but I can meet that with knight to h... Ooh, if I play knight to h2, I get h4. And then it's really unclear how I break through the position. There's no way he just finessed me into a draw. I mean, there's still open spaces in the middle of the board. There has to be a way to get out of this. Okay, let's try knight to h2. Okay, we do get h4. But I think I can play now bishop to e1 and look to place my knight on e4. Right? There's a lot of possibilities for the knight from there. It could even attack g5. So I'll play with that optimism for right now. I'll play knight back to f1. Okay, bishop comes to d5. I'll play rook to e1 because if my knight ever does make it to e4, I don't want to have to recapture with the f-pawn and create a passed pawn for him. I'd rather recapture with the rook. So rook to e1 first. We get rook to g6, sure, the bishop has to go. And now we can put the knight on e4. Great, now that I've done all, wait, what? Rook to f7. Check? Is he that unafraid that I can play check? He moves out of the way, takes. And you're telling me there's no way for me to break through after that? Holy moly, there's no way for me to break through after that. Because even if I sacrifice the bishop, what am I going to do? He's going to recapture and put the rook on g5 and then we'll go for a walk with his king. And no matter what I do, there's no way for the rook. There's no way. That's actually ridiculous. Okay, that's ridiculous. I don't accept this. What am I supposed to do here? Is that it? Is that it? Okay, we have to try for something here because there's no way I actually messed this up and I'm still up a piece. Going back to what we previously talked about, check, king moves, I take. King recaptures. There's nobody defending the f4 pawn, so there's the opportunity to sacrifice the bishop. If the pawn recaptures, the concern, of course, is rook to g5 stops the pawn and the king just walks around and there's no way for me to break through. So, what if after I capture, I just play g5 immediately? He'll take the free pawn, rook to g1, challenges the rook. I imagine that rook to g3 is the strongest move, looking to create another barrier. I'm going to have to take, and if he takes with check, I just play king to g2. It's bishop against rook, but the position is extremely closed and there's only one open file, which I can play on with my rook. I'm going to give that a try. Check, takes, and I did one last look, but I don't see any other way for me to break through here. There's only rook to e4 is the other idea. Looking to just sacrifice. But the problem is after takes. Actually, is that a problem? King to f3, I can sacrifice here. Let's look at that for a moment. Rook to e4. The idea is if the king just waits, I can take. But then he would just capture in that move. Takes and then recaptures. And I'm not totally sure that's losing for me. King here, I can take this pawn. Actually, that might even be a better idea. Okay, we have two competing ideas. Rook to e4, looking to sacrifice the bishop, but actually have a recapture in position. And sacrificing the bishop right away, where he would recapture g5, takes. Rook to g1, rook to g3, takes, king here. And hopefully I can get my rook in on the h-file. I like this idea better. Let's play that. Rook to e4. We get rook back to g8. Okay. So far, so good. If I take, he takes, I take with check. That has to be winning for me. And if I take, the problem is bishop takes e4. I recapture, he recaptures. King to f3. It doesn't look like he can hold on to this pawn. So I assume the king would just move over. If I take, check, king moves back, and there's still no way into the position. So let's give that a try. Takes, king to f3. a3 does nothing, so I'll take. He lines up the rook. And now I could even play king g5 and look for this pawn. But let me make sure I calculate this correctly, because if I do allow the rook to come into the position, not that far, further, this far into the position, obviously these pawns crumble like a house of cards. So I have to make sure I'm accurate with my calculation here. Obviously I can't play rook to f1 right away, because check, king moves, I drop the rook. So I have to make a king move here. What about king to g5? King moves out of the way, I take the pawn. Rook to f3, g5, takes. Actually, I don't even have to play g5. I can just protect my pawn. Okay, what about that? King to g5, king to e7. I guess the issue is if I come to protect my pawn, rook to f2 threatens this pawn, and this pawn is even more advanced, the a pawn, as opposed to the c pawn. Okay, so I guess just playing for the win is our best option here. Because after king to e3 and king moves over, I have no way to fight for the open file other than king to e2, which is just met with rook to f4, rook to f1, takes with check, I move over, and I'm not sure that I've accomplished much of anything. Wait, can I just play king to f3 there and win the rook? Oh my god, I think I can. Okay, king to e3, king to e2. Nice! And he doesn't even play it. He doesn't even play it because after rook to f1, I force a rook trade. If he takes king to f3, traps the rook. Oh my god, the tactics are paying off, people. All right, sorry about that minor interruption. I don't know if you guys heard my alarm go off, but I had to go get some ham and cheese. I didn't know what to call them, rolls from the oven. Anyways, back to winning. Let's play rook to f1. Actually, let's make sure this works. Rook to f1 offers a rook trade. If he doesn't accept it, my rook comes into play, very strong. So if he does accept it, king goes all the way to the back rank. I'd imagine he'd play for an active king, so king g6. I'd imagine my plan is to do the same, king f2, king g5, king f5, and he has to give way because there's no tempos that he can make. So king back, king forward, should be crushing. Takes, king forward. And the idea here is he's going to wait to play king g5. But I can wait too. King to f3, king to g5, king to e3. He has to move out of the way. I move forward. Great. Okay, king to g6. I just push. King to f4. Oh, he's just going to stop me from moving to g5. Okay, but then I can play check. King here. Pawn forward. Obviously sacrificing the pawn. And then I move over and take the h-pawn. So I'll play that. Check. Oh, he doesn't even do that. Okay. Makes it even easier for me. I'll take and push some pawns in your face. What you can do about this, mister? Take that. I'll move over. Whoa, pawn sack. Pawn sack alert. Which means, oh, that's actually so tricky, because if I take here, what, b4 takes and then I lose? That's actually so tricky. Anybody might accidentally take this pawn towards the center, but I'll take this way. Push, push. This king does not have long enough arms to stop all of these pawns. Check, check. Very on brand. Checkmate. All right, we defeated the evil Martin bot at -5 eval as the trigger point. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one.